pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Terry, I see your name is here. Am I correct, you want to speak under the public hearing? Right, not at this time?
It is to public hearing.
Okay, great. So we're going to begin with the minutes from November 9th.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from November 9, 2017 as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes from the meeting of December 7th.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from December 7, 2017 as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Moving on to the warrants. Payroll warrant number 18.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 18 in the amount of $36,644.10.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to payroll warrant number 19.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 19 in the amount of $35,113.76.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Moving on to payroll warrant number 20.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 20 in the amount of $34,086.76.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to payroll warrant number 21.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 21 in the amount of $34,615.59.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to payroll warrant number 22.
Make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 22 in the amount of $38,952.30.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Moving on to general warrant number 10.
Make a motion to accept general warrant number 10 in the amount of $2,733.26.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to general warrant number 11.
Make a motion to accept general warrant number 11 in the amount of $74,837.94.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I just want to let you know that's far more warrants than we usually have, but we did not have a meeting we missed a meeting in November because it was Thanksgiving. Moving on to monthly reports for October.
Make a motion to accept the monthly reports presented from Building and Zoning Department, Department of Public Works, Finance Department, Human Services, Police Department, Rhode Island Resource Recovery, Tax Assessor, and Planning Department.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to old business. Finalizing the purchase of National Grid street lights and conversion to LED street lights. This is from Prism. Hi, how are you?
Nice to be back. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
I have not had the opportunity to meet some of you. I'm Tom Gentz. I'm the volunteer board president of PRISM, which is a partnership for Rhode Island Streetlights Management, and also the former town council president of Charlestown, Rhode Island. I'll give you about a 30-second reason why I'm here, and then we can talk about any questions that you might have. I've been at numerous Town of Gloucester Town Council meetings that some of you may have been to and seen the PRISM. There are 100,000 streetlights in the state of Rhode Island. National Grid is making a profit of between $8 to $12 million on streetlights for municipalities. Our organization was founded to save municipalities money. We have done that. We wrote the law in 2013. and municipalities like Providence, Central Falls, Tiverton, Little Compton, Charlestown, my town, 5 fire districts, including many in the northern part of the state, Hatchet, Oakwood, Mapleville, Oakland, Mapleville, used to live on Oakwood Avenue. And so we're here to save you money. It's not a lot of money, but over 10 years, it's $30,000, which I think is significant to anybody's budget. So because some of you haven't met me yet, if you have any questions, I know that you have a very busy agenda tonight. I know you haven't met for a while. I don't want to talk about stuff that is redundant, but I'm here to answer any questions. If not, we can get into the value of buying your streetlights and converting to LEDs. So, any questions before I move forward? A lot of paperwork that you got, right? I apologize for that. Most of that is National Grid's. The first item is in our preliminary streetlight report, we said that to buy the streetlights would be an $1,148 charge. National Grid actually sent you a bill for $438, which is $17.55 per luminary. Luminary is the light. That's what National Grid calls the light. That's a very good purchase price. We had estimated based on $70 per light, which is the statewide average. So the lights that you have been worked on by Kelly and Susan and myself and Bob Clarkin. We actually got National Grid to remove the street light, which was on a private property, which was a good thing for your inventory. Doesn't change the purchase price, but you don't have to maintain it. That's a very good thing. It's down a gravel road and 3 poles in somebody's private property. I don't know why it was on your inventory, but it's off. National Grid, based on Prism's research, got that to be removed. So is there any question about purchasing the lights? Do you want to go through and talk about the conversion potentially to LEDs, and then you can go on all 3 at the same time?
Ms. Hoare, Mr. Rogers, and myself were on that council that approved PRISM. I don't know if Mr. Stone or Mr. Dillon have any questions. Yes, but we approved it.
Listen, no, I sat in the audience and listened.
So,
Now, tonight's where we address any lights that are in question or that are on the list, correct? Before we finalize that?
yes. If you want to do that now, before you vote on buying the streetlights, that's fine.
Probably be best, that way we know how much we're buying, so.
Yep.
And if we could go over the list.
Sure.
I was aware of the one that was found on that dirt road, Jenks Road, and that one's already been addressed.
Yes.
All right.
National Grid is.
So that one takes that one. You have, on the list, you have a couple that say private question mark. Apparently, they're on poles facing into the parking lot where businesses are.
That's correct. You would not be purchasing those.
Okay.
For those that may not know this, when you buy the street lights from National Grid, you buy the arm, the photocell that sits on top that controls the on and off, and the light itself. You don't buy the pole. So it's National Grid's responsibility and sometimes Verizon's responsibility to manage the pole. And you, on your council agenda, have items for pole locations that you receive from National Grid. So that's the only private light. There are, I'm sorry, there's another one, which is a floodlight, pole 44 on Danielson Pike, which is private. You're not responsible for that.
Okay,
It's
so
not
we're
an
not-
inventory. That's correct.
All right. I saw those 2 private on that list. I was just curious if we were paying for a business's lighting.
Right. What we did at Prism is we went out and looked at all the lights, and the ones that National Grid had on the inventory that they sent to the town,
Yeah.
we found other lights, which are the private ones.
All right. That's the question I have.
Ms. Hoare had a question.
I would like you to explain these to me,
Okay.
please.
Can I just see what?
They're the white, the
Okay.
brightness,
So,
the brightness and the stuff.
yeah, if I could. So, this, let me do the easy one first. We have recommended part-time dimming on the LEDs. The human eye cannot detect a 30% reduction in light. So this is an example in Cambridge, Massachusetts of the part-time dimming. Now, the reason why we recommended these is because the largest rebate from OER, Office of Energy Resources, and National Grid comes from these part-time dimming lights. So as you can see, it's not very much dimmer. It may be hard to see it in this PDF.
That's why I wanted you to tell me, why am I looking at this,
Yeah.
what does this mean?
So one of the decisions that you have to make is, do you want to do part-time dimming lights? And the other one is 3 and 4K. Kelvin is a temperature that steel melts at. Kelvin, steel goes from yellow to orange to white hot to blue to white hot. And that's the Kelvin range. A high-pressure sodium bulb is 2200 Kelvin. So the lights that you have in town right now are 2200. Steel melts at 7,000. Some towns have chosen 3,000, majority of towns have chosen 4,000 because it's a truer light for first responders and for motorists. And obviously, we want the street lights to be there for safety purposes. So, North Smithfield has 3,000, Providence, Central Falls have 4,000, Tiverton has 3,000. A lot of the towns, the fire districts like the 4,000 because of the first responders.
Is there much of a difference in cost?
Energy cost would be higher electrical for the 4,000.
I'm not quite sure of that. I'm not quite sure. I don't think that it's a market difference in the fixture itself and the light.
Just speaking as a first responder, most of our streets are totally black. We have very limited lights on Route 6, so as a first responder issue, all our trucks are purchased and set up with deck scene lights and light towers that will light it up like you wouldn't believe. So as a first responder going to many calls in the town, it's very seldom that we have one on the street. And when we do, our lights well beyond supersede the lighting power of any street light, whether it's 3,000 or 4,000, right?
You do have a lot of lights on Route 6, so that might be a consideration for the 4,000.
Most of them are at the intersections. I drove up and down and saw where all they are. I did see one at the top of Dalico Hill that was not at an intersection, was on a straightaway. So I did have a question about that one also. All the others were clearly like at Falcon Road, Boswell. And I was trying to find the pole number on that one, because I see Danielson Pike 08, that would be Round Hill Road. 28 would probably be Ramtail.
Here's the map of where your lights are. So this
Is that the
is
Situate line, this one here?
this one.
Is that the Situate line or the Connecticut line?
That's
And
the
then go to the other end. And it would be actually probably either this one, which would be that, this one should be a Ramtail, this should be a Roadway, is that Ramtail? Valley Cold Wall. There's none at Ronald Lane, so there is one down here where Old Danielson Pike, that is an intersection. This one, I mean, believe it or not, I would rather see that light at Ronald's Lane, because it's not at a road, and if you follow down Route 6, you'll actually notice they're all at intersections, that's an intersection, every single one is pretty much at a road that comes up on Route 6. I mean, I don't know if it would be wise to move that one to the first intersection in town, which is Brown Hill Road, instead of having it not near any intersection where all the other ones are. So if we don't remove it, I would like to see it move that's the only intersection that's not really covered.
Make sure it's not red. So you see that light as being on, right?
Yeah.
We have it as being on.
No, it's on, it went down, and all of them are at intersections except for that one.
We can, now's the time, when we do the purchase order, we can move those things. It's a few more dollars to take it down, put them on the next pole, but it's not a game changer. There is one light that is on that Bob Clarkin recommended be converted, which is the 19th light.
Yep.
And that is at the intersection.
Yep.
It's right where the double lanes are, and I believe there's a Catholic retreat on the other side of the road.
Where the double lanes are going up Route 6, or
Yeah, there's a side road on the south side of there.
that would probably be a Ramtail. Ramtail.
He said across, that's the thing, that when.
It's not literally across, but
Goes
it's-
like that?
Same board?
Yeah, by the tattoo parlor, all right, yeah.
That's what I.
Yes.
Oh, with the old Route 6, okay,
Yes,
yeah.
So that light was on National Grid's inventory was off, but it's actually on, and Bob recommended we convert. That goes from 18 to 19.
Okay, yep.
But if you want to move,
Well, that's my suggestion. I mean, I went up and down Route 6, and I didn't, every one I saw was at an intersection except for one.
One, you're talking at Rounds Hill at the.
No,
There
it's
isn't one at
past.
Rounds Hill, it's up past, but Gordon is recommending we move it down to
Down to
Rounds Hill.
Rounds Hill. See, we don't have the benefit of the map, so I'm not
I
entirely
can-
sure what
I-
you mean.
I don't mean not to,
No, I understand that.
keep it away from you.
No, I just want to know where
I'm
he's talking about.
sensitive to your time, so here's the light.
Yes.
And
Okay.
if you follow down Route 6, you'll notice every single one is at an intersection, except for that one. But the closest intersection to that light does not have one, and it is Round Hill Road coming down Delaco Hill. Right, when you come around that corner, if somebody's, the roads are slippery,
Yeah.
and somebody's trying to pull in the Round Hill Road,
Yeah.
you've got a stopping problem, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Acknowledge.
Any other questions or concerns?
I did want to say that Joanna, our solicitor, did look at the contract, and she did have concerns, we discussed it earlier before the meeting about, you want to go through it?
Some of the concerns were just arising over the fact that National Grid obviously seems to have a lot of control. If they want to take down a pole, you know, the town is going to be responsible to remove our portion of the light. If there's another person using the pole, some of these poles are co-locators, and that person needs to put something on. Again, we might need to move our equipment, and then you are going to be responsible for that. So you do, obviously, I know that you have to pay some additional insurance, but the contract is very one-sided to National Grid. However, I think National Grid, these are standard contracts, and I doubt they're changing it, but just so that the town is aware, there's a lot of responsibility put on you once you own this portion of the.
Well, he just indicated we have to pay extra just to move for the Round Hill.
Yeah,
So it'll be the same thing, right?
yeah. But if they want to take down a pole,
Yeah.
they take it down. And you need to go get your equipment off of it, and that's that. So,
Can they just go in and take it down? If they want.
if they want.
If the pole is bad, they'll replace it, but if the pole is hit by a car, I believe the insurance,
We can charge.
we have insurance that would cover that. And, you know, I can go out there and see poles, and they used to put little nail stamps in them with the year that the pole was.
Yeah.
Some of them date back to the 50s and 60s,
No,
but
I-
they've replaced a lot of the poles on Route 6, so I don't see any chance of those poles being old enough to be replaced, so it is a concern, but I think the only poles that will probably come down on Route 6 are either in a storm, which they'd be fixing anyway, or if some car hits it, would be covered by insurance.
We just changed one on Sunday. They were out there,
Yeah, so-
putting up a pole.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, we don't have a lot of lights in town, so again, it'd be like, you know, the chance of the amount of poles you have in town, having one that actually has a light on it that didn't come down with a storm or a car accident.
Do you know how much it costs to run in a pole or fix a pole? Because we do have a co-share for our insurance as well, so.
But you're not replacing the pole, just the arm.
No, you just have to take your
You just take a light.
Okay.
You just have to take that.
portion off.
Now, I must tell you, sometimes National Grid takes it off the pole and takes it around the bottom of the pole and never lets us know. So it's down, and all we have to do is come and collect it, or put it on this,
Okay.
so.
This is something we voted on previously. so
Right.
it's-
Right.
I personally think the risk is worth the gain on saving the money, so.
That's what we had voted on.
We did, but now you have this contract that you are going to sign, so I figured we should probably revisit this. Because it's, did you decide your signature on it?
Yes, I did. Any other questions or concerns?
So back to the color of the light, the whiter light or the more yellow light, what is your preference on that? That's the 3K is closer to the current high-pressure sodium light on the scale, the Kelvin scale. the 4,000 is a little pure light, and I don't know, Gordon, if you have a comment on which one you want.
Of course I do. Being an enforcer just for the dock,
Yep.
I don't really have a problem with the lighter light. I think, I'm not like a light pollution type of guy. I'm used to dock, and I'm used to having a dock. And again, you may go 3 miles before you hit a night light. You may go another mile. It's not like you're in a city and there's one every 150 feet. So, I don't have a problem with either, but my preference would be with the 3,000.
I was thinking the same, simply because the night sky and
I was thinking that too.
I was thinking light pollution.
So, just to, Charlestown has a dark sky ordinance, just so you know, because we have process through the observatory. There is these are 180-degree cutoff lights, and I'm not arguing or disputing Gordon's discussion, but the amount of light that goes in the dark sky is, I have a report that it's like 2% that leaks up into the atmosphere, whether it's 3,000 or 4,000, it really doesn't matter. The light is a little more blue, but it doesn't escape into the,
Do you have a recommendation that you make?
my personal recommendation is that 4,000 because of the first responders, but many
It doesn't
communities,
affect us.
some communities gone 3,000.
But
North Smithfield,
4,000, it wouldn't
different.
affect us as first responders, because as you said, most of the time we're in the dark.
It's one of the first duties that we do, no matter where we are, is set the light tower.
So I don't, personally, I don't see a need for 4,000.
So
Does
3,000.
anybody else have any concerns that they want the 4,000?
Now, when we, I don't know if you want to take a formal vote on buying the lights and then the 3,000 and the part-time dimming, or whether you reach consensus on that, I don't know what your logic is here in that.
I'd rather have it in one
Yeah,
motion.
and in one motion.
And the last thing would be for us to prepare the purchase order. There is no charge for the purchase order. I will bring that back so that you can see it will be itemized by the lights. I'm assuming we're going to move this one light that Gordon wants to do, and we're going to convert the one light on that one pole, so it makes it 19 plus the conversion. I will also show how much it costs to remove the lights. I think there's 3 of them to remove. You don't have to do that. At some point, National Grid may ask you to do it, so you can make that decision when we come back to the purchase. Again, there's no charge for the purchase.
Why would we come back to the purchase order, why wouldn't we just process it again? So I'm confused with the process now.
I would go with your,
So if they're voting on all of this, why would we have another?
Because I haven't
meeting
brought
to-
back the actual light, the actual cost to convert the LEDs. In the report that we provided,
it does.
It improves.
there was an estimate in there, but, we've added a light, we've done some things, price has changed since
So what
February
price?
2016.
Okay, so Then what I would recommend at this point, then if that's the way he wants to go, and you want to go, is he'll come back with a purchase order, I'll actually prepare it, and we'll put it on another agenda. We'll do that. That's not what we normally do, but we'll.
How many lights are we talking?
19 to convert.
There's 18 on here, but then there's a
Well, yeah,
additional
that's-
one that Mr. Clockin recommended, the one
Yeah.
Buzz.
Pole 18 will be, 18 will be moved to 19, and it'll be by in the vicinity of, that would be Patterson Hospital.
Right, but I also think Mr. Clockin recommended one that's near the Buzz there, to move it
No,
out
that's,
on.
yeah, you said 18 to 19?
Yes.
Yes, so that
There are
was,
3 to remove.
on our list it says 18, but they'll actually be 19.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, the one by Jim's will be moved out,
Out, that's what I understood. Right, the one that's in the little
half circle,
half circle, the turnaround, the old.
will be moved to the actual travel lane.
Right.
They've got that confused with the one at Patterson Hospital.
Buzz. Yeah.
Here's the one at Patterson Hospital, that was the up, like, three of them there. probably be around number 112. My address is right on 106.
So
The
116?
intersection of 108 is, no, I don't think, I think 116 might be Main Road or Belleville. There's one parcel. What's the, you gotta call it this one. Here's one at Parasol Hawkins, that's the one I was talking about, near the tattoo parlor. Then we got one in blue, and I think that's probably the one from. And then you have another one that's right where these ones. Real Lake Road. Well, it's around.
Thank you for bearing with us.
109, then it comes up to 116. Just showing you. That's within. Yeah, there is one. He's got one right in the middle.
It stands up like a soft part.
You have 3 dots there.
So it's right near the menu card,
Right.
one that.
Well, see, there's a little offshoot right here.
Right over the old
Yeah,
man.
like 60 off, so it comes in and goes out. So I guess Mr. Clark was saying there was one there, these was, it was moved out to the travel lane. And I think that's what he's saying, whole 18, which he's at 19. That's also pretty close to the church.
Well, I can drive down there and then I can talk to Kelly.
All right.
See if I can find the phone.
So what I'll do, is there a motion we're going to be waiting until later? Or?
No,
I'll
I
just,
think make
well, I'll make that motion to address the whole,
Yeah.
Mr. Cox
I think it would be favorable for us to make a motion to purchase that and to,
My motion would be to purchase and move forward the Prism and move specifically the pole up on Route 6 and move it west to Rounds Hill Road. And then, under Mr. Hawkins' recommendation, to deal with pole 18, move light pole 18 to 19, or pole 18, pole light 18 to 19, and to go with the 3,000 Kelvin green lights
yep.
Did I figure that out?
And the night dimmer.
and the night dimmer, and come with Kelly for the final price for approval further at our next meeting or meeting after that.
It'll take about 6 weeks for the holidays to get
So,
the
there will be some.
purchase order, and then from that point, then it'll take about 3 months for it to be manufactured.
All right.
Second.
Yep, discussion? Hearing none? Oh,
Well, I just wanted to know, there are cases where a pole is hit or damaged and the light is not damaged. Okay, sometimes you've seen them hanging, okay, or they end up leaning on wires or something like that. If the light is not damaged, who's responsible for removing it? To replace the pole?
The town.
National
the
Grid.
town is.
National Grid is responsible for the pole. All you have responsibility for is the arm, the photo cell, and the light itself.
So the light-
So if that light is not damaged, but the pole is, they will remove that light?
I would love to say they would ask us to take it down, but normally they take it down, tape it to the bottom of the pole, put a new pole up, and then we'll come out, and the town recognizes the light's pressure on the pole, and we'll put it back up. If it's not damaged, then it's only a service call to install the arm and the light. So,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, have a good night.
I'll be accusing myself of this.
Thank you.
So you have those shoes on?
No,
Whatever you say.
If somebody said it, yeah, you can file a claim with that insurance.
okay, so we're moving on to the EMA applications, appointments. We did interview 2 candidates. We do have in our packet tonight a third candidate, but that application or resume was handed in after the fact. It was actually after we interviewed the two candidates. So we have two candidates we've interviewed. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Heidi Rogers for the EMA director position.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Wright?
I assume, did the other candidate have adequate qualifications? Mrs. Rogers also already serves on the Board of Canvassers, which is a paid position. This is a paid position. We are always wanting more people to get involved in the town. And it would seem that rather than, one more time, use retreads, that we, encourage other people to get interested if they have a good resume. I know she works, she takes care of children, she works for the Board of
That's
Canvassers.
not our problem.
I know that's not
I'll
the
look at her
problem.
qualifications and her, we interviewed both
May I
candidates.
say something?
Yes.
It was indicated in the, I felt the same way, but in interviewing the other gentleman, he indicated that this was like a little stepping stone, probably not here long, going on to further his education in that. And I am inclined to agree with Heidi, hiring Heidi in that position, because I know she's gonna stay here and she is gonna work hard, but
So we'll be paying her for 2 appointments.
Thank you, Mrs. Schreiber. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the resignation of the DPW director. I will be reading his letter. It says, "Dear council members, as per my contract, this letter serves as my 3-week notice of resignation of employment as the Public Works Director. My last day of employment shall be Friday, December 29th, 2017. I will be available by phone to help with budget, capital, and operating into early January if needed. I wish to sincerely thank this council for allowing me to do the job you hired me to do with absolutely no interference. I would also like to thank the taxpayers of this town for passing a 3-year contract for the DPW director position. It positively gives the position more stability than in the past. I particularly want to thank the DPW liaison, Gordon Rogers, for his assistance and thorough knowledge in the operation of the Department of Public Works and all that it entails. Gordon's financial astuteness and technical knowledge of the department and the entire town, along with the affordability of its priorities and needs, is, in my humble opinion, second to none. Sincerely, Robert J. Clarkin." Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept this resignation with regret.
Second.
I agree with regret. I think Mr. Clarkin did a fine job.
I would like to add, very seldom do you have somebody that you can count on to go above and beyond what is required on paperwork. Many times Bob would show up on a Saturday and drive around town, would ask any of us council members to sit with him and go over things. And he clearly put, it's a perfect example of 110, 120% of his position, and he'll be sorely missed.
I agree. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the applications for DPW position, we have several applications. What is the pleasure of the council?
Again, he's going to be resigning very soon, so I think this is of expediency. I don't know if anybody got the opportunity to kind of roughly go through the resumes. My personal opinion is to pick what we may think is the top 5 or top 3 and schedule an interview as the whole council and possibly make an appointment after that interview.
I would agree with that.
I agree.
I mean, we're in a tough season. I think we need somebody, Mr. Cochran is willing to,
We do have background checks we have to cover, but again, we can work around that by saying that if somebody's appointed that night, it's contingent on passing all that. But that will cover that, but I think we're coming, it's not like we're coming into June, July when it's a slow time. We've got snowstorms possibly right in front of us, we've got holiday seasons. We don't even know if some of these people will be able to take the job or when. So I don't know if we should say 5, but I think if we nail it down to 5, if we at least have 5 show up, or even 3 that can make that appointment. It's just at this point, I think we should decide which 5 would be.
can we, at this time, I'll ask the solicitor, can we at this time say who our 5 would be? Or do we say in public meetings?
Should it be an executive session?
Or should it be an executive session?
Just so that we can discuss the file.
If you want to place names, I think that's fine. I would not have any discussion.
Really, probably.
You
Yeah,
might
no.
want to have some
We should,
discussion, so.
Yeah.
I don't think we should.
I don't think we should.
I don't either. What I was going to
Well,
propose
then we
doing.
can't do it tonight then. So
No, what I was going to propose doing is that if we had a meeting to review the applicants in executive session, then move on, set up tonight, when we would do that, and set up tonight when we would interview those people, so that it could be like the next night.
Well, I mean, that's fine with me, but what I'd like to say was, I went through all of them,
I did too.
and,
Do you have the file?
well, that's what, I mean, their 5, but that suggests may be different than theirs, but we may be able to hash that out. I don't think, as the solicitor said, saying the name is really saying anything about anything other than their name, and we can inform the town clerk to contact these people, we can decide on an interview date tonight.
I have 3.
Yeah. Well, listen, the reason why I said 5 is because we may not all agree if we say, let's pick 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, we can say 5, and 5 may not show up for the interview.
Right.
You know, and then we may have to decide then, we're not happy, let's give more time.
Start with
Okay.
one if you're in agreement.
I have 5.
All right, now, and I'm not gonna put them in the order of my 5,
I
but
have them in the order now.
I'm just gonna go with how the stack's sitting in front of me, because I actually got a set of copy at home that has my numbers on it, so I'm gonna have to go
They
over
have
it
them
again.
too, we put everybody's in their packets,
Right.
to sign, everyone
Right.
has them in the packet, now that you.
So,
And you can tell that they must fill it out on that Indeed, because they're
Yes.
all
Yep.
the same.
all right, so that being said,
Is that what you're doing, what you want to
He's
do?
going,
I can give, I know my top 3.
Well, look, don't put them in any.
No.
Just give your name.
All right. And I'll go to 5, and it's just the way they were stacked in my in my file here. So, one of my top 5 is Robert Law. One of my top 5 is Robert Dexter. One of my top 5 is Todd Howell, Howell.
There's 4 or 5 in the file.
yep.
Yep, and there was one, I don't want to say where it worked, because that's not supposed to be. I just
Well, I'd
have-
like to add a name instead of you adding one.
All right,
No, he's saying his name,
Oh,
that we can
okay.
say,
I'll do it,
we can say, that we can say, well, I'd like to read those names and then go.
yeah, and so we may not agree on 5, but we
Right.
probably agree on 3. So that's why I put the number at 5.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
he's not running this.
I thought I was clear when I said that.
You
I'm
were,
sorry.
you were, I understood.
There was a couple others that, I'm getting down to 4 and 5 where it was, you know, there was a few that were kind of,
All right, so can,
No comment.
no, I know, I'm trying to find the names. There with me.
then maybe one of us can jump in. Go ahead, Ms. Ward, do you
I
have the
would
name?
like, yes, Joe Cardillo, I would like to be in there.
Go ahead.
And I think because he works for the town, we should give him a shot, it's Gary
Last name?
Burson.
You added something that you should know.
What'd you say?
You added something you should know.
Go ahead.
All right, I did find one. Robert Walker was one I also thought was interested. 4 that I chose to throw in the list. There was another
Do you
one.
have one?
No, actually, you already picked one.
Okay.
No, but if, wait, but if, board-
No, no,
so
you-
just give me the names that
Yeah,
you
right.
would choose, even if board did, so that we can have a consensus.
Let me tell you mine. I said Robert Moore, Robert Dexter, Joe
Wait, slow down. All right, Laura Dexter,
Cardillo,
yep,
Campbell O'Leary, and Todd Hollow. And that's only for you ladies.
all right,
I have 4 Johanna.
go ahead,
Dexter,
yep,
Law, Bergstrom, Walker.
okay. Do you have any others?
Law, Dexter. I said the other 2. I'll throw in Campbell and Murray.
Is this down?
Gary Bergstrom. Robert Law, Robert Dexter. And Todd Howard.
I would put 4 forward, right?
Yep.
One, I think it was Sandra worked, I didn't say where she worked, but I'm trying to, hey, you see if that's it.
Well, that's supposed to be on.
No,
You don't have to.
Just want to make sure there was something, no, that she wasn't. I guess that's it for me, I'll throw the 4 in.
So everybody's given theirs and the tally is?
Lord Dexter Bergstrom, Howell, and then the remaining 3 each have 2 votes. Cardillo, Walker, and Leary, so,
Well, I didn't do a 5th vote, sorry about that. I can't find, does somebody have, or here's the local one here, I'm not sure. I did say him once.
You
didn't I?
did, you
All right,
did.
so, all right, yeah, I think he's the one I was actually looking for.
but,
So,
so those 3, we need 1 more, and
Yeah.
those 3 names only have 2 votes each. Does anybody wanna? Cardillo, Walker, Leary.
can I vote for Walker twice?
No.
You didn't find that hidden in the beginning. Do you want to put your, you did, he did Walker.
I said Walker.
Yeah.
I gave my 5, I did not have another vote.
Me? No,
No.
those 3 are like
Well, then I'll
cardinal.
put it for Walker.
You
Tiebreaker.
already put yours in for Walker.
Well, we need to pick another
We
one.
need 1 more.
Cardillo.
All right, you had voted, so he's number 5.
There we go.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. So now, if we could look at our calendars and pick a night.
I'm pretty much available anytime when the sun goes down. Vampire.
I would be available the 20th or the 21st.
I'm not either of those days.
The 26th, 27th. We have a council meeting the 28th, we'd like to make the appointment that night.
When is Mr. Clark's last day? I just
The
want to work
29th.
backwards. 29th.
The 29th, 28th is our council meeting. So,
Do it before it.
do the interviews before the council meeting?
Yeah, that's too short.
Thank you. So.
We don't have to meet, I mean, we can meet anytime, right, as long as we post it.
Right,
Right.
so that's what I'm saying, it could be the 20th, 21st, 22nd.
20th.
I could do it the 20th during the day.
22nd is my birthday, so I may do a one.
The 20th during the day, but that's not convenient, well, that's a Wednesday, that's not,
Unless I have Friday, Saturday.
I'm a working guy.
21st. And if it, I mean, even if you can meet on the 22nd, I can actually meet on the 22nd, I need it
some of these people work.
I was gonna say, you have 5 people, so you're probably gonna need 2.
And the reason why I did say 5 is because I'm under the understanding that maybe 5 might not make it.
Yeah.
we still may be able to at least make a decision on.
Okay, so, the 20th at night, you can't make it, Ms. Hawes, right?
I can try, I will try.
Okay, so if we do the 20th, 6 o'clock?
Stock up.
And if we, 20 minutes, half hour, what do you think?
20 minutes.
What did you think, 20 minutes?
20 minutes, so
We can schedule to 20, but if they go half an hour,
Yeah,
Where are they gonna go?
So if you do-
To the town hall?
yeah,
yeah.
okay. So starting at 6 and then every half hour?
well, I put it down for 20 minutes, and if they go half an hour, it's understandable. A little over on each.
So,
Start like at 5:30 and get going in, so we're not here all night.
No, that's, 5:30 is fine with me.
I was thinking of, that's fine.
Just because it's so early, you're gonna have to send me a reminder, Cheryl.
All right, I will.
Me
I
too.
could make it, but I might be,
A few minutes late.
yeah.
And we're going to do this at the townhouse, right, town hall? Thank you. Moving on to the response to the IBPO Local 637, letter of concern, police building. Last time we met, we had a letter from the police officers, and we also have a letter here from Mr. Peters, or Officer Peters, that states, "Dear Mrs. DeFranco, on November 14th, Councilman Rogers attended our union meeting and provided information relative to the knowns and unknowns of our current building and the matter of an air quality test. He also explained the current stages of the standalone building, other considerations such as police headquarters being housed in the town hall, merging with the Situate Police, disbanding the Foster Police Department, and having the town patrolled by the Rhode Island State Police were also mentioned. I'd like to thank him for taking the time out of this busy schedule and making known the council's formal position to the police body." So, in response to that, we have some material that was given to us prior to tonight's meeting. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, so went to the meeting, and some of their concerns, they highlighted, that was in the letter read at the council meeting. Two of the biggest concerns they had that they would like to have addressed was the air quality at the police station and the knobbing tube wiring. I misplaced my letter, but I believe Mike has, and if somebody might read that, I think Mike Paolucci had gone in there. We'll address that one first. I had,
I just have them. See, I don't have anything from Mr. Paolucci.
was there something from Mr. Paolucci on, I read something about $65 an hour for a man hour estimated, I'm gonna paraphrase. The estimate of hours was between 25 and 35 hours. And if you take 65 an hour, plus it was material, the labor would have been around a couple $1,000s. It is a large concern because there are some open boxes with open junctions, knobbing tube wiring, it is an issue. So he didn't mention cost of replace on the wire, he just gave an estimate of what it might cost if we went out to do it. And the man labor's hours on the high end was around 2,300. So if you're gonna throw in wire and connections, you're probably gonna be just under 3,000 around there, my estimate.
That's for the.
For the knob and tube wiring, that I think is, and when I get onto the air quality, is probably the biggest thing facing us as a decision if we want to move forward and address that. With that being said, I just want to jump to the air quality. Mr. Clarkin did do some background checking, and you've got a fact sheet in front of you. And I didn't know about it, but their issue was the mold in the town hall. And I believe anything that was a visual mold was addressed, because if you remember, some of you that were on the council, we had a chimney leak, and we had some issues with the rain coming down Police station. Sorry, the police station, where the chimney went through the roof, the flashing, we had a leak problem, it would follow its trail down the chimney and into the basement. The basement is a very damp area because it's a 20-year-old house. And there was sheet rock around the base of the chimney that was soaking up the water off the floor, which in turn, there was obviously, it looked like some mold in the sheet rock, which happens. That since we've repaired, I think we spent like $7,000 or $8,000 on the repair of the chimney and the flashing and the roof issue. And we also removed anything that was visual mold in the basement, which isn't where the day-to-day operations are, but there was that down there. And I believe that's all been removed and addressed. Now, back to the fact sheet that Mr. Clocken gave us on the air quality test. I wasn't aware of this.
Can it wait?
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
I may be a little bit off on some
Yeah,
stuff.
just to clarify, the leak is the water, and it's still leaking. The water's coming in by the oil tank. That the mold was removed by a mold remediation company. There still needs to be some work done around the boiler room, but yeah, both issues, the chimney and it still leaks periodically around where the oil tanks are. But the mold was removed by a remediation company.
And I would advocate if there's any more visual mold, I mean, the sheet rock should be addressed.
They said the chimney's still leaking.
No,
No,
no.
Yes, it's still leaking.
the chimney is,
No, the chimney's not, the
Oh, by the
building's
oil
still
tank.
leaking.
oh, by the oil tank is still leaking.
So that could be addressed,
I
but
had a question on that.
number two?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
well, you went to the next.
Yeah, well, I was gonna address both issues and then, okay.
His guesstimation on the knob and tube is for what he can physically see. Because if he's gonna replace all the knob and tube in that building, it's a mystery. If you understand how knob and tube was done, I'm not an electrician, but I've torn enough things apart to know how knob and tube works, and they didn't have toaster ovens and microwaves when knob and tube was made. So it's typically two wires that run around the building, they tap lights off. Usually, well, it was just lights. So it's just what's exposed.
And that's all he could guess on.
That's all you can guess on, because you don't know where it physically is.
So that's like putting a Band-Aid on it.
Well, it's addressing what's exposed.
It's what's obvious that may cause a
It's not
problem.
replacing all.
Yeah,
It needs to be addressed.
But what's inside is gonna be an issue too, it could go anytime, right?
The knob and tube, the electrical?
If it's actually behind the walls, we don't know. There may be, but what he gave us is what Mike said, what he could see.
Okay.
And, I mean, it's obviously an issue, you can see it.
Oh, I know,
And
I see
to ignore what you see is up for us to decide. But what I was trying to do was kind of address the air quality thing and probably get back to the wiring. I didn't realize it, but Mr. Clockett sent us some information that there is no federal standards, much like drinking water, there are parts per billion that meet certain federal guidelines that says after this point, action is going to be taken and, you have a danger there of prolonged drinking of water of such. But air quality tests, there are no federal guidelines, so you can spend thousands of dollars to do an air quality test, and there's going to be no determination because there's nothing to say, here's what meets levels that are dangerous. And I wasn't aware of that, so again, what I'm bringing forward was their concerns and what we found out. And there's a couple of things highlighted here. There are no appropriate standards for indoor air quality tests, and down here was also highlighted. Testing as a first response does not usually lead to any answer or any solution. Very often, the testing is conducted as a knee-jerk reaction to reporting air quality, internal air quality problem. So my concern is this, notwithstanding the concerns is, but spending money to try and determine something that we can't determine, do we want to do that? I think at this point, up for us to decide, but I think the real issue that we should be addressing is probably the knob and tube wiring that's visual. How do we want to go with that?
Could I ask, Chief, is there any mold still visible? It's all then-
Not being a mold expert, they did remove all the mold that was visible. And again, there, he did any go up into the insulation that is, is not visible? Again, we had the company come in and it was removed, so.
How about where the leak is now though?
Yeah, there's no
Visible
drywall
mold
because it was
there?
all removed. The drywall's never been
It's all
replaced.
slopes, violation wall and material. So again, if anything, just let's take the scenario, we got into the insulation and stuff. An air quality test
Yeah.
won't show anything.
Can I just speak on the air quality test? I've worked in the building 22 years, and again, whether there's no federal standards, the town doesn't have a baseline of what is even in there. Again, the employees, the future employees or the past employees, there is no standard or baseline to go off of. We've done the radon tests, we've done the other tests, but there's no baseline to even, whether it be federal standards or just state standards or just
That's the
industry
problem.
standards.
Even if you did have a baseline, there's nothing to relate the baseline to. So even if you did take a baseline every single year and spent that money over 40 years, there's nothing that says if it hits this level over a certain amount of time,
And
it
it already
becomes
has,
dangerous.
it already has tested positive for lead paint.
Well, that's,
Right, so again, nobody knows what is in there. So again, whether it be the union, myself, or the past employees, what is the baseline air quality in there? Because nobody knows, it's guessing.
and my point is, I think the immediate issue is the tube wiring, but we're gonna be moving forward with a new solution that in some way or factor moves away from that building, which is the goal, but if we're gonna start dumping all kinds of money into that building, why move to a different solution, just continue it and I'm just bringing forward what I have here as what I'm trying to get some answers to satisfy what their concerns are, and
So
that's what we have in front of us.
before us, we also have how much does it cost? Is this just a generic, how much does it cost, or is this?
Is that the air quality one? That's,
It says mold and toxic material.
yeah, that would be a possible cost to get what it would cost to do air quality test in that building, so you'd be spending on a high end, $2,800 to give you a baseline to use. You can't use it for anything, there's nothing to say, much like a drinking water standard, there are federal guidelines of like parts per billion of certain things, and you can take a water test and say, hey, we're over on this, that's bad, or we're under on everything, we're good. There's no guidelines with air quality tests to say, oh, we have a problem here. That's what Mr. Clark, and that's what this is about. There's no federal guidelines.
So if the range is from $125 to $2,844. So.
I think it's opening up Pandora's box, in my personal opinion, to spend up to $2,800, but there's nothing you can pinpoint as a problem. I personally think you can pinpoint a problem with a nozzle tube wire. So I think, at the very least, we should address that, and again,
That may go someplace we don't want to go.
well, at this point, I agree, so what do we do? I think there's an issue with the visual nozzle tube wire.
When you spoke to them, and we're continuing with the building committee, and they're supposed to be coming up with plans, are they willing to wait
They
to
wanted
see
us-
what happens, or do they want these addressed now?
That was,
The union.
the IPPO had concerns about this, and I told them that I would bring this issue, investigate it, and bring it to the council. And I'm only relaying some of how I think and what we found as problems, and I am only one vote.
Are you able to speak on behalf of the union?
No, not me, but.
No, I know.
The gentleman next to you.
I am.
You're able to speak on behalf of the union.
Yeah, can I just address, again, the IBPO, and like I said, as the chief of the police department and a previous employee, they've asked for an air quality test. Gordon said that they could give them the air quality test. But again, if it's a cost thing, again, the health of the employees shouldn't be a concern, or the health of the employees should be a concern. Cost shouldn't be a concern if it's $2,800. If it's $2,800 up to $2,800, to know what is in there that that I'm breathing, my employees are
I
breathing.
think though what was, excuse me for interrupting you, Chief, what I'm sitting here seeing, it could be up to 2,800, and it could be an additional 3,000 or more that we would be putting into a police station that we want to replace. So, do we do all of it? Do we do some of it? Do we wait?
There could be no issues, but there could be health issues that our employees are facing every day. So again, I don't think that should be even a matter of let's just gas or let's wait.
Right.
And again, if you want me to pay for it, I'll pay for it.
I'm not looking for you to pay for it, Chief.
No, I agree with you.
So,
I just wanted to hear what they want. I think probably the air quality is the most important thing first, right?
And again,
Well, they're breathing in every day. I think it is. I think it's important that,
well then let's, could you just tell us your name? And I'm so sorry, I don't know.
Joseph Cole.
Oh, the award-winning,
yes.
gentlemen, you don't have your pins on.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Joe
So
Cole is
Officer
the-
Cole.
Joe Cole is the president of the union.
Okay, Officer Cole. What would be, what is the union stance on this?
More of what the chief said. We want reassurance on what we're breathing in inside the building. It's a lot of unknowns, and you know, the knob and tubing. I'm not an electrician. I don't know anything about that. So I'm going based on what you guys are saying on that. But when it comes to air quality control, yeah, I would like to know what I'm breathing in on a daily basis.
And we would get a baseline, but you're saying that there's nothing that says
It's dangerous.
what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, so you understand that part?
Just tell you what's in the air, but the problem is, what's in the air, there's no federal guidelines that say this could be dangerous, so.
And at that point, if they say this, and this, so many parts per million, whatever, just like a water, that's not what
Right.
you're assuming. And at that point, before they,
But water does have lead.
But water has federal guidelines, what would be dangerous.
so would they have,
I'm sorry, could we just have one conversation?
Well,
going?
the recourse could be endless, because
would they say you have to put in air purification systems?
here's, I'm totally for safety, but again, if you do a test on something, there's always calibrations that you have to set your guidelines on so you can have a response to a possible problem.
So we have a test, and are you making the point of, we don't know, we don't have a negative?
We don't have, even if they come up with a baseline, there's nothing to match that baseline against that would say, hey, prolonged use causes this problem. There's, unlike water quality tests, they've done years and years of background tests, and they understand what a certain level of prolonged use can cause, let's just say, cancer or something. So you're walking down a tough path. The issue is, you do an air quality test, spend thousands of dollars, what do you do then? Let's say it comes up with so many possibility of dust that you can't say what the dust will hurt, because there's nothing to base it against. Most, like, for example, lead problems, you mentioned lead, I don't know how much lead is in the air, you may find none, but most lead issues are from actual ingestion of lead flakes.
If somebody goes in there and tests that for lead, unless
Well,
everything's
listen,
been,
this building-
everything's been physically
Right.
painted, every square inch of that place has been painted like painted.
It's already been tested for lead, and it has tested positive for.
Of course, it's because any building predates 1976 is gonna have lead, but the issue is the air quality. If the air quality comes up with X, Y, Z, all of this stuff, you have nothing to base it on to
And
say
again,
there's a problem.
nobody knows the baseline of the health, the air quality in that, you know. So-
But the baseline means nothing without something to gauge it at that says at this level, that baseline is bad.
Federal
I think
standards.
we've gotten the idea.
Thank you, Mr. Sabazio. Thank you, Mr. Sabazio. Has, Officer Cole, has the union looked into any of this mold, and do they have any facts
As of now,
of the air pollution that they would want to be tested? Do you
as
know?
of now, no. We left it after the
Mr.
last meeting. Yeah.
Mrs. Ryder?
I find it incomprehensible that there is no federal standard for clean air. I mean, they test in the cabins of airlines, they test hospitals, they test schools. Whenever there's an issue, it gets tested. Many times it's brought up and you have to have an air purification system put in. But besides Mr. Rogers' word, does anybody actually know if there are federal
I think
standards?
it's just Roger's word, I think it's on this.
It's from the department, the Connecticut Department of Public Health, is
What
what I
about
read
Rhode
that.
Island?
There's nothing on Rhode Island because there's no standards. So all we could find, what Mr. Clark could find on his research was neighboring states was this from the department, Connecticut Department of Public Health.
Well, I suggest you get an actual expert in on contaminated air, contaminated everything. I mean, in this day and age, to say that there's no standard that tells you whether or not the air you're breathing is dangerous, and the fact that what is in it, will it or will it not cause something. I mean, they know about, secondhand smoke, for God's sakes. They know about all of that. The other thing is, as far as the knob and tubing, to only address what you can see, most fires in old homes start where you can't see, in the walls.
I think that was what was brought out, that we
So I don't
started
see
and
as
keep going.
cost being protecting their health, be it what they're breathing or the chance of a fire. I don't see how a few $1,000s is not worth it. And if it opens Pandora's box, so be it. These are human beings working for the town.
Thank you, Mrs. Rogers.
Can you just check with the health department, because all that, we do have this in our guide.
Excuse me, Mr. Sheldon.
My company deals with mold in houses. We have been for 10 years. There is no federal standard for mold, mostly because they don't want to know. The number of foreclosures that exist, probably 80% of them have mold in them, and they don't want to pay to fix them. They do have us clean them up and paint to hide the mold, but there is no federal standard. The other half of what I want to say is the feds have or HUD has a flat rate manual for how much it costs to do things on houses. It's called repair base. That's the approved HUD flat rate manual for fixing houses. And in that manual, there is a price list for how much it costs to do a house by the square foot to test for mold. So you can look that up, at least know where the standards are as far as the cost is.
I just want to be clear about one thing that I mentioned. I was not against either one of these. The point I wanted to make was, we got to consider, once we start dumping money into that building,
Yes.
do we continue? And once you start putting money into a building, you got to make a decision. Are we going in this direction, or are we going to concentrate on that? I have no problem spending thousands, tens of fifteens of thousands of dollars to repair knob and tube wiring, air quality tests. But once you're in, I'll give you an example. I had an excavator. I had a pump problem. Spent $17,000, $18,000 on fixing it. I was all in. I couldn't back out at that point. So it's going to be, in my opinion, I don't have a problem throwing money at that and fixing this for the public safety of the police officers. But my stance will be, we can't do both. We're going to have to make a decision. Right now, they're going the directions of a brand new police station that's going to cost the town, who knows? But you can't do both at the same time. So my opinion will be, let's fix everything there, and I will push to continue to move to finish any other problems that are being brought up that have addressed why we need a new police station.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Would you
Lori
say your name?
Cardillo. My question is, these guys are working in an environment that they have no idea what they're breathing in or out. Knob and tube wiring, if it catches on fire, you can see that. The unknown could be killing them and they don't know it. So I think what the town council needs to focus on is the more seriousness of, what are these guys breathing in? Are they taking stuff home to their families? If it has lead, it must have asbestos. And that is a cancer-causing agent. So what is more important? Knob and tube wire that can catch on fire, guess what? You got insurance. Now you got a new building. Or you're going to be worried about what's in the air.
Thank you. Mr. Savazio.
An explanation of knob and tube wiring in the walls. Unless it's balloon framed, which means basement to ceiling, there are firewalls, there are sills. In the walls, there's very little chance the two wires will ever touch. More than likely, knob and tube in the attics from squirrels, short circuits. In the basement of the police station, there's a chance some guy might want to go for like this for some reason, okay? The air quality, I don't know anything about it, but you are the chair. And at some point, it becomes redundant. And there are people sitting here, obviously, for some reason, and they'd like to see this thing move on.
Thank you, Mr. Savazio.
You're
So I
welcome.
won't expect a call from you tomorrow.
No, you got it tonight.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Timothy Johnson. As a contractor, when I do work on any building containing lead, first of all, I have to go and get certified in lead by the state and get a license for that. When I work on anything that has lead and I disturb that, they require me to have an air quality test to test for airborne lead. So lead is a potential airborne contaminant. So
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan.
I'd like to make a motion that we've known about the knob. I'd like to make a motion that we go forward with air quality test, see what it says. Leave the other thing,
What test?
the knob.
High
and
end,
the-
low end? High end or low end?
What are you testing for?
Testing the air quality in the police station for whatever the hell's in there. It could be lead, it could be mold,
Asbestos and
whatever.
So you're looking at mold and toxic materials.
Right,
But you have a sheet.
I see that now.
I
there
think
was
the
already a
chief-
lead test, I believe, done.
So they know there's lead in there, but do they know if it's in the air that they're breathing it in? That's what's gotta be tested for, right? Right. That's my motion. I think the other can wait because it's been there, we're watching it. Let's get this done and then see where we
So
go
we
from
tested
there.
for lead, or what are we testing?
Any toxins in the
Mold
air.
and toxic materials.
there are federal
Right here on the
standards.
first sheet.
There are federal standards for airborne lead,
For lead,
acceptable
asbestos,
levels.
and
And
radon,
radon.
there
Yeah.
are standards for those three.
Yeah.
Not for mold or anything.
So look at the price list.
I personally don't give a care what it costs. I would like those people
I
to.
understand that, but you gotta put that in your motion.
Whatever it costs, how's that?
So the motion has been made by Ms. Horst. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion. I think the more immediate problem is the knob and tube wiring. As a firefighter, I think, and that's what my issue's been.
Well,
They're both an issue, but to me, the knob and tube wiring, I think is,
I think that's horrible.
the only
I'm
thing,
sorry,
the only
and
thing
know,
that
but
I think is
this
saving grace on it, it is a 24-hour facility, so if there is a fire, somebody's not sleeping, there's somebody awake at the wheel at all times. That's the only saving grace with the knob and tube wiring. But, the issue is, the insurance company has already brought that up specifically to address it within 30 days of that issuance, which was a long time
Are there
ago.
fire alarms in the basement and the attic?
Yes.
I would agree with Ms. Horst and go with the mold and toxic material air quality at this point in time.
Just think that's important. I think that it is.
Is there any further
They need
discussion from
Open-
council?
Open-ended price.
We would have to put out for a,
Okay.
right? You'd have to put out for. a
Anything over
purchase order.
5,000 would have to go up.
Right.
Right, it'd have to go out and get purchased. So we can't,
Should get quotes.
right, you're
And
gonna
then we
get
can-
quotes, you're not gonna,
All right.
Make a motion, is a motion to get a quote?
to get a quote and then go from there.
Well, right up on RFP, and put it out. No, just a quote.
Well,
I'm looking at the
it doesn't look as though you would have to go for an RFP, but you should get a couple of quotes. Some people would do this,
Right,
and use the lowest quote.
okay, so you're amending your,
Yes.
your,
To that, Kelly just said.
okay. So now we have the motion to go out to get some quotes in regards to the mold and toxic material, air quality. It has been seconded by Mr. Rogers. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion to include the knob and tube wiring because of the concern of the interlocal trust that gave us 30 days to correct, or come up with an action plan to correct it.
Okay.
Second.
Get a quote for that too, an actual quote. We're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. Can't pick and choose safety, it's all in or all out.
Okay. Okay, good. Any further discussion from the council? Mrs. Ryder?
So this is a vote only to go to put out a bid, not to actually do the
Get
work.
quotes, not to get a bid.
Right,
Get
not to
quotes.
actually go forward and do the test.
Yeah,
We're
well,
doing,
Well, that's what I was gonna ask too. 'cause
Yeah.
it seems like-
no, I want it to go forward. Once we get a bid, we pick the bidder and we go forward.
we get quotes and move forward.
Because you would
Yes.
be looking at two systems.
Unclear.
Yes. We would be looking,
Well,
yes.
that was my intent.
And I understood that intent. I
I'm
understood
good.
that intent, yep, okay. So,
I second, 'cause
yes, I have that, thank you. So we, all in favor of the amended motion? Opposed? Okay. Going back to the main motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
All opposed?
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna address everything.
Thank you for listening to us. Moving on to new business, reappointment to the Foster Gloucester Juvenile Hearing Board. We have a letter here from Mr. David Sweet, who is currently the chair of the Foster Gloucester Juvenile Hearing Board, asking to be reappointed.
I make a motion to reappoint David Sweet to.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. We have a letter of resignation from the Conservation Commission, from Lena Roszkowski. I'm sorry if I'm not saying her name correctly. Do you want to read it?
Dear Councilor, please accept this letter as notice of my resignation from my volunteer position on the Forest Conservation Commission as of November 17, 2017. Due to the arrival of my first child on my current work schedule, I am unable to meet on evening hours for the time being. I do plan on being involved in the near future, however, at this time, I am unable to devote my full attention to the Forest Conservation Commission. Please let me know if there are any further questions or concerns, or if you require any further information. Sincerely, yours, Evelina M. Ruskowski. And with that, I would regretfully accept the resignation from everyone from the Forest Conservation
Is there a
Commission.
second?
Second.
Discussion? I will say the Conservation Commission is in sore need of volunteers. If anybody out there is of interest, please let the town clerk know. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the Private Roads Maintenance Committee. You have in your packet people that have expressed an interest. All of the people on the first page were notified, and the second page tells us who was interested. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I believe the way that was, I think, just for clarification before I make the motion, I believe the committee was set up to have a couple of representatives from each road, which 6, and we didn't get from each road, but we did get a group of 6 that would cover covers Howard Hill Road, which would be Simula's driveway, 2 of them, 1 from Rounds Lane, and 2 from Pine Tree, 3 from Pine Tree. So, at this point, I would make a motion to accept them 6 as we put it out and move forward to have them 6 on the committee.
The 6 of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I second it.
Okay.
Discussion?
I would have liked more.
No, it's not a question.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth from the list, and are these names on the list? Am I not seeing them? I took these two,
Yes.
I took the last two as they don't live on one of those roads, that was my assumption.
Well, do you think we're doing
The last one is Mr. and Mrs., but they're at 24.
They're number 24 on your list. They're there.
So that would be 7, I didn't catch that, Mr. and Mrs. So the point was for 6, so they would have to pick one of either or, I would believe. But the committee vote was for 6. I didn't catch that, Mr. and Mrs. would think it's 7.
The one before that, a company
Yes,
owns the property, so
Oh,
that
she
just
meant-
must be one of the residents. But they hold the property in an LLC. See 12 Round Lane?
So I'd like to revise my motion to the 6, and that being either or, Mr. and
Number
Mrs.
3.
Mhm. I see that. Either or.
Right, to make the 6.
Second.
That has been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the reservation of unspent funds budgeted for the planning of the police station. Ms. Ross, I'm assuming this was yours.
At the end of June 30th, there was money left over, and everyone from the building committee and all around was talking about the police station, thinks that they have 11 or 12 or whatever amount of money that they have left over. I basically have 19 unless somebody's holding a bill. I think the architect hasn't been paying in full is really what the story is. What happens is at the end of the year, the fiscal year, the money rolls into fund balance. So as a council, if you don't want it to be unreserved or restricted, you need to reserve that.
I'd like to make a motion to that. Motion to assign and restrict all unused funds appropriated in fiscal year 2017 for the sole purpose of planning for the replacement of the police station for the same purpose in future years until the project is released and completed.
Second, the discussion.
Any discussion?
I am a member of that police building committee, and I do believe I'm not sure, but they may have some balance left on owing the architect, but
They do.
I think there's an RFP going out for surveying and
But
topo.
But even with that balance, if you don't restrict it, that money's not there, because the work that the architect is doing is this year. It's a different fiscal year.
Okay.
And it's
So
not
that
And this
payable.
didn't come under like a
No.
capital project where
It
you
was
start
budgeted in
spending.
operations.
All right, okay, so I understood how it's an accounting thing.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on, we have a bid opening for heating oil. We had 2 bids, and we have a letter of recommendation from Mr. Cochran, the DPW director.
I read it.
Sure thing.
I got my paperwork on this tonight. Dear council members, I have the opportunity to review the bid for winter heating oil that was recently submitted and opened at Town Hall on December 12, 2017. I recommend that you award the bid to Rambo and Sprague of North Situate as the most beneficial to the town. The low bid is the lower of the guaranteed maximum price of $2.12 for a markup over cost at 0.9 cents. Sincerely yours, Robert Clark, DPW Director, and with that, I would like to take a motion to accept Mr. Clark's recommendation for the oil winter bid.
Second.
Oil bid.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We will now open the public hearing for the business license renewal. I'm going to read the procedures for public hearing just once, not for the 2, and just so that everyone knows. Once the application or ordinance is read, the president will hear from the applicant first. It is the applicant's burden to present evidence supporting his or her request. The presentation must be clear and to the point. After the applicant has completed his or her presentation and the council has asked any questions to their satisfaction, the hearing will be open to the public. Both proponents and opponents of the proposal will be allowed to speak. Proponents will speak first, followed by opponents. Any person who wishes to speak will go to the microphone. We don't have one present, but if you would please stand and speak loudly. provide his or her name and address. All questions and statements must be addressed to the council president. There will be no crosstalk in the audience. There will be a 3-minute time limit. You are cautioned to avoid repetitious or irrelevant comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed. Once all have been heard, the council will close public comment and wrap up discussion. The president will then accept a motion to approve the application or ordinance. The council reserves the right to postpone a decision until the next regularly scheduled meeting on any application or ordinance. That being said, we have before us the license renewals. Sure. I'll open the public hearing for the business license renewals.
I move to approve the following second-hand licenses upon receipt of annual licensing and advertising fees and approvals from the building official, tax collector, and police chief where applicable. Dated December 31st, as of December 31st, 2017, 2018, second-hand license renewals. Abby Goslin, DBA A Bees Buzz 114 Danielson Pike. Russell Smith, DBA Chelsea's Trading Post 151 Danielson Pike. Joseph Osmonsky, DBA Forster LLC 40 Mill Road. Henry Shabbat, DBA Forster Beararms and Trading Post Bait Shack 52 Danielson Pike. Newell Wright II, DBA Hemlock Brook Auto Sales and Service at 37A Mill Road. Michael Cogshell, DBA Mike's Auto Repair at 45 Anthony Road. Paul Hayhurst, DBA GCC Auto Sales LLC 175 Danielson Pike. Morris Maglioli, DBA Wright's Auto Sales 37 Mill Road. Keith LaFazia, DBA Rody Outdoors 2 Gomine Road. Certified Automotive Inc., DBA Steve's Gun Shop, 66 Central Pike.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a question,
Discussion. Go ahead. You have a question?
just for clarification. I don't know if you want to do with the public this first.
I just want to make one,
Number 8, Norris Macaulay.
we do have a letter from our planning, building and zoning official, and I will read that. This is from Brett Bishop in regards to Wright's Auto Parts, 37 Mill Road. After inspecting the salvage yard, the following deficiencies were found. The salvage yard at this time holds approximately 2,000 autos. The live fence screening, evergreen trees have grown tall and lost the lower branches, therefore not providing screening from the road. The abandoned house on property is open and needs securing. So that being said, I will open it to the public if anyone has a comment on these licenses.
First of all, with rights, was there a limit? I believe there was a limit
Yes,
on
there
the
is,
number.
and that's why Mr. Bishop is requiring.
Way below 2,000. My
Yes.
other question is, how many of these businesses do not have all of those requirements?
Two.
Do not have all,
You
no,
know,
they
don't
all,
have
they all
had all
met,
the.
they all met their requirements. It has, as you're familiar with, they have gone before the police, the tax. And
Right, it's just
the village.
sometimes they would be waiting on something. I was just wondering
Right,
if any.
and that's why the motion is with approvals from. As long as we have those approvals, then that they would be. I just wanted to point out that Wright's Auto Parts, Mr. Bishop did cite them and is requesting that we not grant them.
Okay, so my question is, if this is included, if Royce is included in this list,
Then we should amend the motion.
well, should it be amended or should, to put
Yep.
that separate?
To exclude,
Because you are with approvals of this.
right, and Mr. Bishop did send us a letter saying that he does not approve. So I'm just letting that be known.
I was aware of that, that's why I made the motion. If somebody wasn't gonna amend it, which I wish they would, I just wanted to get these all out there, then we
Yeah.
could discuss the issue,
I agree.
so the motion could be amended.
I agree.
It's for clearance, for being open and transparent.
Okay, so that being said, do we have amendment to the motion to exclude Morris Maglioli, DBA Rights Auto Salvage, 37 Mill Road?
Yes, I'll make a motion to amend it.
Is there,
To,
What's the amendment?
what's the number?
To exclude them
from the
this vote.
license?
From the license.
Them being rights,
That being from
Right.
the
Right.
description.
I think
Rights
because I
Auto
said it,
Salvage.
he, yeah,
just to make it clear for the record.
there's been a second. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the main motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. We have the Julie license renewals.
Move to approve the following officialing licenses upon receipt of annual licensing fee and approvals from the building official, tax collector, police chief, where applicable. Rycott Energy Corp., DBA Rycott Energy, corner store, 189 Hartford Pike. Drake Petroleum, DBA Extramont, 188 Gillis Pike. And that's for December 31st, 2017 through 2018, official license renewals.
Second.
Discussion? Anyone in the public that would like to say anything in favor or opposed? Thank you. Council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to gun shop license renewals.
Gun shop license renewals for December 31st, 2017 through 2018. I move to approve the following gun shop licenses upon receipt of annual licensing fee approvals from the building official, tax collector, police chief where applicable. Lawrence Costamello, DBA Allery Farm, 7 Rickard Road. Keith LaFazia, DBA Rhodey Outdoors, 2 Gold Mine Road. Henry Shabbat, Foster Bear Arms, 52 Danielson Pike. Certified Automotive Incorporated, DBA Steve's Gun Shop, 66 Central Pike. Leon DeFranco, DBA LJD Guns and Supplies, 9 King Road.
I do want to make this clear that Leon DeFranco is not related to me. He spells his name D-E, I spell my name D-I. I therefore can vote. Anybody in the public that would like to say anything in favor or in opposition to these
I need a
licenses?
second.
Who seconded that?
Oh, my God. You did.
I'll second.
Thank you, I thought you did already. Okay, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on.
I move to approve the following holiday sales license upon receipt and annual licensing fee and approvals from the building official, tax collector, police chief where applicable for December 31st, 2017 through 2018 holiday sales license renewals. Rycott Energy Corp., DBA Rycott Energy, corner store, 189 Hartford Pike. Henry Shabbat, DBA Foster Bear Arms and Trading Post, 52 Danielson Pike. Lucine Luzlerion, DBA Foster Quick Stop, 173 Danielson Pike. Bonita Lambert, DBA Lady Love Llama, 82 Cucumber Hill Road. Drake Petroleum, DBA Extramont, 186 Danielson Pike. Patty Guzman, DBA A Bees Buzz at 114 Danielson Pike. Russell Smith, DBA Chelsea's Trading Post, 151 Danielson Pike.
Second.
Thank you. In the public? Council?
Yes, the Foster Quick Stop, there's a red mark on that also for tax collections. That she has until, I believe, we run into this from time to time, and we've usually, the date she has to have signed off is by December 31st. I just want to make it clear that there is a red mark and the clock is ticking, so
Right, and it does say that it's with approval of the tax collector, so. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to campground license renewals.
December 30, the campground license renewals for December 31st, 2017 through 2018. I move to approve the following campground licenses upon receipt of annual licensing fee and approvals from the building official, tax collector, and the police chief. Virginia Bassett, DBA Ginny B Campground, 7 Harrington Road. Legacy Land Preservation LLC, DBA Dyer Woods Campground, 114 Johnson Road.
Second.
In the public? Council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on.
These are private investigator license for the license term of December 31st, 2017 through 2018. I move to approve the following private investigators license upon receipt of annual licensing fees and approvals from the police chief, the building official, the tax collector where applicable. Alan Pittman, DBA Alan Pittman Investigations at 117 Central Pike.
Second.
Discussion in the audience? Council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I now close the public hearing for the business license renewal and move on to the Danny's auction bond transfer of license. We have before us, as we know, I'm assuming it's sold now. No, it's not sold, okay. So we have here that they would like to transfer the license.
I make a motion that we accept a request for the transfer of license. Confused here because there's no
I know
applicant.
the applicant's name is,
New applicant's name is.
I guess the owner of the property is David.
Danny's Auction Bond LLC. Address of new applicant, 1 Snagwood Road and Route 6. Owner of the property, David and the Hallidays. Address on 153A, Forster Center Road, Forster, Rhode Island. Vehicles, type of second-hand articles to be sold. Is that permit?
The second-hand license so that it would go follow along with the same. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Is there anybody in the audience that is in favor or opposed to transferring the license? Council, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving, I close the public hearing for Danny's auction transfer of license, and now I open up the public hearing for the amendments to the use table in zoning ordinance to allow firearms, ammunition, archery, edged weapon shops in an agricultural residential AR zone with special use permit. Before we go along, for those of you that do not know the history, this was brought before the previous council. It was voted 3-2. The 2 in opposition were Mr. Rogers and myself. We, at this council, requested that it go back to the planning board to review, to ask them to review whether or not a special use permit in the agricultural residential zone would be appropriate for the firearms. They did meet on October 4th. They came back with a conclusion that after study and consideration does not recommend an amendment to the zoning ordinance which allow firearms shops, ammunition shops, archery shops, and edged weapons in an AR zone with a special use permit. That being said, it is now brought before the council and open to a public hearing. If you are here to say anything in regards to the amended use table, I would ask that you stand, state your name and address, and then speak directly to myself. Is there anyone here who is here to speak in favor? Favor? Well, in favor. Mr. Sheldon, would you please stand, state your name and address?
Ask for clarification.
question for
Jeff Sheldon, you come over.
1 second, Mr. Sheldon.
When you say that the body was the zoning board or the planning commission that,
The planning board is the ones that,
and they recommended
they were,
no gunshots even with a special?
no, they did not.
What-
Those
what-
people, the people that we just granted the license to are grandfathered in. This is for any change.
That's what I mean, any
Yes.
new?
Right, any new,
Okay.
yes.
Even if they had like none at all, special permit or no, new gunshots?
All those people that we spoke about before have it with a special.
Yeah, I
use
understand.
permit. Okay.
I mean, you're talking about going forward.
Going forward, yes.
Going forward, the zoning, the planning recommendation was no
Not allow
gunshot.
them at all.
Right, not to allow them at all.
Not even with the
Even with
special
the-
permit.
Not even with
Thank you.
I thought I made
Sorry
that
about
clear when
that.
I read it. It does say with zones with a special use permit. They do not want that. That's what their recommendation to us is. We are now opening it up to the public. Mr. Sheldon.
This accessory use for AR zoning, it's almost what AR zoning was designed for. This-
residential?
Excuse me, there'll be no cross talking, and it will be directed to myself. Thank you.
Under the accessory rules, this use of it would, almost all of these businesses are contained entirely within the home. Federal guidelines say that they have to have a safe for their guns and ammunition. These are inside the home. Nobody's ever even gonna know that this stuff is there. It's a business that doesn't show up in an in a residential area. We've had several of those businesses in town. There's never been any issues. None, as far as I know, and they're going back 40 years. I think there's several still in business, 4 or 5. Not sure how many.
Well, we just granted licenses to 6, I believe. Yes, 5.
So, under agricultural, AR zoning, I'm sorry, there's a lot of accessory uses that would, in fact, show up. People parking their work vehicles on their property, stuff like that. This isn't gonna happen with these firearms. Most of these people already own these firearms. There really isn't gonna be any change. To not allow these people to do this, if they so choose, is to say to them, we don't ever have to, if these people own these guns now, there's not any inspection by the police chief, nothing. With the technology, these things will be inspected on a regular basis. A federal firearms inspector could come down and check on these things if people are worried about the guns themselves. These people don't even have to get these things if they own the guns already. It doesn't make sense to deny them the right to get this license because of politics.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor of Mr. Sabazia?
I was the one abstention on the planning board. I voted no. I think the one good thing about this is there's more likely to be guns properly registered with these guys holding businesses. Basically what they do is, he's a seller, he's a buyer, they have to come to me, and I fill out the paperwork. So having said that, the positive thing about it, and that's why I abstained, because I knew the way the vote was going to go, I'm going to say totally, I'm against firearms, and most firearms deaths are in the home with people that they know. So overall, it's a good thing, but there are way too many guns in this country, and in Foster.
Thank you. Mr. DiPaolo.
Well, I wanted to say that I'm glad to see this issue is back before our council. I also wanted to say that most towns, including Providence, Johnston, Warwick, cities, all allow FFL licenses in homes. And I think Foster should be on the top of that list, especially rural Foster. We've had it this way for over half a decade. We've never had a problem. I think the police chief, I was at the council meeting when they did change that, make that change. And I know I heard the police chief speak and say that he doesn't remember a problem in the town of Foster from any of these people holding FFLs. I also wanted to say that transfers are done at the kitchen table in most of these homes of people holding FFLs. And that's why I would like to see them come back. We've never had a problem with it. I don't see why it was changed in the first place. And most FFLs, FFLs outweigh, FFLs in homes outweigh FFLs found in businesses across the United States. Most FFLs are found in business, in homes, I'm sorry. I also heard that some people thought that maybe firearms testing would be done at these homes. That's not true. You can't test your firearm at a residence if you go and do a transfer of your firearm. You don't do that at Foster Bear Arms on Route 6. You don't do that there. So that's false. You don't test your firearm. And also, there's no traffic involved. I've been to many places where I've gone to homes that have FFL licenses to do transfers, and I've been the only car ever in that driveway. I've never seen traffic. There's no parking problems. But the thing is, if there is, down the road, if anybody has a concern, if the neighbor has a concern that there is things like parking problems or traffic problems, well, it comes up every year before the council to renew this license if you grant a special use permit tonight. So you guys have total control of this. If there is a problem down the road, you can change it, you can stop it. You don't have to grant that person from having an FFL license in their home in the future. So I urge the council tonight to bring it back the way it used to be and let Foster be rural and go back to allowing law-abiding citizens be able to have FFL licenses in their home. Thank you.
Any further discussion in favor of this? Okay.
Can I ask a clarification question? It's not a pro or against. My name is Susan Mara. I'm at 11 Mill Road. Are there criteria associated with a special use permit? Because normally when there's a use table and there's a special use permit, can we hear what those are?
I didn't bring the zoning book, but typically, and I'm just going off the top of my head, it needs to be consistent with a comprehensive plan. It can't change the general characteristic. But the planning board can impose special conditions upon the applicant based upon their idea of
That's
where
not
it
what
is.
I mean. I mean that you can impose, and usually you do impose specific requirements with a special use permit, like, it can't be within X feet of something. So there's nothing proposed to sort of understand, and that's just what I'm asking. Like normally you would include special.
So typically what you're talking about is sometimes the zoning ordinance, for example, we have a specific section with respect to cell towers and where they can be placed. This proposed change is only to the use table and it only requires a special use permit, so it's just the regular standard parameters
The general
of the special.
consistency,
Yes.
the comp plan, et cetera, et cetera. Have you considered what criteria might be? I'm just asking because, again, I'm trying to understand what it is, because as a homeowner, I'm not really understanding. Like I see gun store, and it makes me kind of interested in hearing how it's going to operate. And listening to Mr. DiPaolo, it sounds like it's a pretty low intense use, but I don't know if there are any protections that you guys are considering that would ensure that it is sort of that lower intensity use.
Chief, can you answer any of those questions as far as I know that they have to go?
Yeah, as I stated before, the FFLs, the homeowner-based ones, there are no traffic issues. They go through ATF background checks, they do through federal background checks, and there's no standards based on, the FFL homeowner has all these hoops that they have to jump through, and a lot of them don't even qualify or may qualify. But your next door neighbor, he could have 1,000 guns that are unregulated, documented, uncontrolled, and the town council doesn't have any say over that or at all. It's just a way for homeowners, business people in town, And again, most of them don't even have guns within the home, they're just transferred from one business, maybe outside of the state, from one seller to a buyer.
Thank you. In favor?
I just wanted to speak to Sue's
I have a question.
comment.
Excuse me, I recognize Mr. Carey.
Joe Carey, Chair of the Planning Board. We did discuss this, and one of the things that was important to me, and I know that the Planning Board had voted or recommended, to not allow it in an AR because they considered it commercial. But one of my main things was, I felt that the special use wasn't enough. I felt that there should be other criteria specific to the AR gun shops to, what would be allowed in the AR zone as far as what type of transactions in the AR, where it wouldn't be like a commercial gun shop, with a storefront, and, it'd be like it is right now. Like what Bobby's talking about is, I understand, it's very limited, it's very low key. But when you just have a special use, I'm sure through that process, we can put conditions on it, and the zoning board can put conditions on the special use. But I think if it's more clear in the ordinance, it might be a good idea to maybe add something besides just having it in the use table, to have something in the zoning ordinance to, address these concerns. That was just something that came up in the meeting, and I thought it was important.
Thank you. Are you speaking in favor of?
No, I have a question. Is this special use permit going to cover people that already have a pre-existing FFL to bring it into the town of Foster?
I'm not sure.
You can have an FFL
Right.
as a
But
whole,
you
as a
don't have a
person.
license to sell.
But if you don't have a license in Foster,
Right.
is this special use application process going to cover someone that's coming in from a different part of town, or someone that has an FFL that doesn't have the license to run his business or her business within the town? Is this
They would
going
have
to,
to- Right.
that would have to, they would have to go for a
If they
special
move-
use permit?
Let me see if I understand you correctly. If they move from Gloucester to
Okay.
Foster, they had the license in Gloucester, and they come to Foster, they would have to apply in Foster.
Okay, because
It
they're
does
in
not,
there.
it does not just transfer over, just like we did with Danny's Farm.
No, I understand that, because there is one listed at now Mount Hygeia, and it's, the town hasn't given permission for it.
I'm not sure about that, so thank you.
Oh, I am, I called ATF.
Thank you.
It is listed.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor? Okay, in opposition, please make sure you stand, state your name and your address. Mrs. Ryder.
Lynn Ryder, Burgess Road. I haven't heard anything that would make, that is a reason to repeal the former ordinance. I've heard that.
The current ordinance.
The current ordinance.
Thank you.
I have heard that, it's better if, somebody who's living next to you could have 30 or 40 guns and no one would know, but this person will be regulated and whatever. That person is still gonna have 30 or 40 guns. Just because you allow a special use permit to have a gun shop does not mean that all of the other people are suddenly going to abide by any kind of regulation. Foster has, that seems to be a big thing. If we don't have gun shops, then people will go under the table or they won't come forward. We have 6. We have 7 if you want to count, though you are counting the Foster Bear Arms. Why on earth do we need more? It's not going to make those people who are not going to do things legally, do them legally. Mr. Dacko at the planning board meeting said that just because you hold an FFL does not mean that you do a proper background check. You do what kind of a background check you want to do. And And that is what and he owns the gun shop. Why do we, people say, oh, keep Foster rural, keep Foster rural. Newsflash, it is not 100 years ago. People live closer together. People have a right to know who is next to them and what they are doing, particularly when it involves guns. I am not anti-gun. Put all the gun shops you want in a commercial zone. But why should everyone be able to buy and sell guns out of their home? Now, if you were limiting this to people who have an FFL for buying and selling antique guns, fine. But as Mr. Rogers stated when he brought this all up, in most cases, these are mail order guns that are then brought in and modified to the buyer's specifications, be it a silencer or a special scope or a buckstock. As you said, I have it on tape. I have it on video.
Mrs. Ryder, I'm going to give you one more minute because we do have quite a few people, I'm sure, that want to speak tonight.
Well, I hope so. There is no good reason to do this other than Mr. Rogers stated that 5 or 6 people have come to him and, felt that they should be able to open a gun shop in their home. That is not a good reason for opening up the rest of the town to what they don't know. Sure, if you want to have it like a pedophile, and there's, you can go and you can call to see if there's a gun shop next to you, fine. But these unsuspecting people, it's not fair.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Yes, would you please stand, state your name and address?
Okay, my name is Armand Briere. I live at 34 East Killingley Road in Forster. I've been there 5 years, and I feel like I'm in Vietnam again. Guns are going off all the time. Boss Road, over here, where these people clear cut everything right to property lines. I fear for my life. I thought every day I was in Vietnam I was going to die. That has come back with all this shooting. I can't stand it.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? Yes. Please state your name and address.
Richard Sparks, 48 East Killingley Road. I'm also on the planning board and I voted against it. And basically it was because I don't see why you should make an exception for a commercial enterprise like a gun shop in an agricultural residential zone. It doesn't have anything to do with agriculture or residential. If you're going to allow a gun shop in, and I don't recall that a gun shop is ever defined, that could mean anything from someone's basement, which I wouldn't have such a big objection to a mega store for a gun shop. What is a gun shop? I don't think it's defined, and I don't really understand what the motivation is or how it benefits the town to open this up by special use permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Betty Lee Cherry, Old Danielson Pike. My concern was that basically with having already 6 or 7 gun shops, and the gun shop that I'm familiar with, which isn't that far from my house, which is fine, because I think they have the knowledge, they've worked with a lot of people in buying and selling guns, and who you're selling to. My concern was that we could, with all these gun shops, attract a criminal type of element. We live residential, people, case areas, they see quiet, beautiful, big homes. It could increase our robbery or just safety. I mean, I read back from the ATF, and I've been told by other people that criminals know where to go and get guns. So, mine was safety. Thank you.
Mrs. Cotter.
Just to make a point of interest, when I stated that there was a gun FFL listed on now
We're
Mount
not going to
Reggie.
discuss that tonight.
No, we are going to discuss it because it's right here, Mr. Rogers. You laughed in my face.
Excuse
Well,
me, Ms.
same
Cardillo,
page.
you will just, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else in opposition? Excuse me, he raised his hand first. Thank you. Could you state your name and address, please?
George Hasavidas, 6 Kennedy Road. I just don't understand why we want to start bringing commercial businesses or properties into residential areas. One of the reasons I moved to Foster was to get away from the very commercialized, the encroachment of commercial properties into residential areas and elsewhere in the state. Foster is very quiet. I live in a residential agricultural area, and that's what I came there for. I feel like the gentleman from the planning board said, why do we want to start opening the door to bringing businesses or commercial properties into areas that are supposed to be residential? We just keep those areas residential and quiet. The other concern I had was that, and I understand that maybe that could be part of the special provision, but if you have a gun shop, it seems to me that there might be an interest for some gun shop owners to have a range or some place to try weapons. And I know that someone said that that's not what they want to do, but I just feel like if you open the door and you say, okay, you can have a gun business here, you can sell guns, what's the stop from saying, okay, we're also going to have a place in our backyard or a place in our basement, but maybe it's not totally soundproof, where we can try weapons out. And then we have a lot more shooting in a residential area. Like the other gentleman said, I live on the Connecticut line, and there's I think it's a gravel quarry, where they do shooting every other weekend, and it's a lot of shooting, and that's probably a half-mile away from me. I would hate for someone to be next door and just open up a range or even just a room where they could test weapons. And now I have gunshots right next door. And I know that you could probably write the law and prohibit that, but then we're working against, if we don't let the business in the first place into a residential area, then it's a non-issue. We allow the business in, and then they start doing something that maybe is in a gray area, then we're going to go back and we're going to fight against that. Finally, we have all these empty commercial properties up on Route 6 that I pass every day, closed businesses, and I know that we actually passed a law last year to try to encourage business development in defunct businesses in commercial areas to try to increase our tax base. We have all these defunct businesses. Why don't we encourage people who want to open a gun store to go into one of these businesses or these properties that are already zoned for commercial instead of bringing them into a residential area? So that's all I found. That's why I think it's a bad idea to change the law to allow really any business, but especially since we're talking about gun stores, into a residential area. Let's just keep the businesses in the commercial area, keep the residences and farms in the agricultural residential area.
Thank you.
Thank
you. One second, there was a lady, yes.
Hi,
Your name and
Archie,
address.
65 Police Pike. I live on the side of the Highland Rod Gun Club. We've been in Foster since 1986. And I just wanted to address a couple of the comments that I heard. First with Mr. Sheldon. Mr. Sheldon said something about it made sense. It was common sense, and I don't think that it is common sense to change the law as it currently states, put a commercial endeavor into a residential zone. Why would we change that and create that special permit for a few select individuals? You're putting all of the taxpayers at risk. Mr. Travasio mentioned the legality in registering guns, and I think that's really a law enforcement issue. If there's a problem with guns and other firearms, that's really not for this forum. That's something that Chief Zeal would take on. Mr. DiPaolo, if I'm pronouncing your name correct? Mr. DiPaolo said something about it's been this way for a half decade. Is that what you said? Yes. So a half decade is 5 years, so I'm not terribly impressed with a half decade. You also mentioned keeping Foster rural. And to me, a rural Foster is a quiet, peaceful Foster. It's agriculture, it's not gun clubs or gun businesses tucked into someone's basement. You had also mentioned there's no traffic, there's no parking problems. There may not be. I don't know what evidence there is to suggest that none of those problems exist, or that any of those problems will not be created in the future. You mentioned the way it used to be. I'm not sure, is that the way Foster used to be? People used to have gun shops in their homes?
Yes.
That's not the Foster that I know, and that's really not the Foster that I want to live in. That's why I'm here speaking tonight. I don't usually come to these meetings, but I feel strongly, as the gentleman who spoke before me so succinctly summarized, that's not the reason people come to Foster. When we're listed as one of the 10 best cities and towns in the state, it's not because people are selling guns out of their basement. It's because of low crime. It's because of good schools. It's because of quiet neighborhoods. Furthermore, Mr. DiPaolo suggested giving the license or making the special use permit, and then if there were a problem, it could be revoked. In my experience, once you've already allowed that special permit, it's far harder to retract that than it is to disallow it from the beginning. And I would suggest to you, since the planning board has already turned it down, that you consider this. I think there are many taxpayers who would like to be here tonight if they knew what was going on. We no longer have newspaper to publicize these things, but everyone that I've spoken to is horrified at the thought of people selling guns out of their own homes. Route 6 has a lot of empty businesses. It's a commercial endeavor. Again, legal counsel at the last meeting said he would not recommend it. So if the attorney is not recommending a special use permit, I'm not sure why we're even considering it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. One other, could I just see if somebody else, yeah, I'm sorry. Could I just see if somebody else wants to speak? You've already had a chance to speak. No problem. Mr. Dacko.
Adam Dacko, 119A Central Pike. I'm not speaking for, I'm not speaking against. I am investigating. Would that residence be taxed as a business? Would that change?
It's a special use. But it's a
Accessory to the
use.
residence.
So it's okay to run a business out of a special use?
None of them do.
They just pay a permit.
Right, they pay a permit, a licensing license. But there is no special taxes, no.
Well, should I elaborate on that? For example, we used to have, under a special use permit, a machine shop. So any equipment that he was using in the process of his machine shop had a tangible rate, tax rate on it.
Correct.
You had under a special use permit, we have a company that, none of these are agricultural, like a machine shop, does calibrations of equipment in companies that have to make sure that their calibrating equipment is calibrated correctly. Yes, many pieces of equipment there that are expensive to do the calibration certification. All his equipment is,
Right, Bridgeport's.
all that is all tangible and tax revenue, yes.
And those are not special use.
Yes, they are.
They have special use.
Yes, they do.
Thank you. Anyone else before? You had raised your hand before you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Eva Socks, Old Anderson Pike. I agree with people who say, and the planning board gentlemen, that we have commercial and we have agricultural residential for a reason. There's no reason you can't have a commercial gun shop. That's what commercial is for. And you can't want to start putting businesses into agricultural residential and say, we're keeping Foster rural. As a matter of fact, I have lived here all my life, and I used to be able to walk through the woods as a kid and never worry about someone shooting me. Now, I have to wear orange to walk down the road because people are constantly shooting, people are shooting at 9 at night, whatever. Now, obviously, it's their guns, they can do what they want, but I think if we're gonna have more gun stores, and I'm not saying that we can't, I'm just saying they belong in the commercial area.
Thank you. 1 second. Yes. Please stand, state your name and address. No.
John Neal, East Killenly Road. I guess I'm going to ask council to leave it as it is, not change this and give the special use. The planning board has put a lot of time into it. Having served on the planning board and as chair, we did work on Route 6 to commercialize it, put the nodes in there to change all of that. I think that a gun shop is a business. I understand the small stuff. But I think that would be a slippery slope to open up for anyone. So I'd ask you to simply keep it as it is. Council been through this before, planning board been through it before. I think we can leave it as it is and, build it.
Thank you. Mrs. Ryder spoken once, let me just, okay. Mrs. Ryder.
I heard the words accessory use mentioned. And yes, we have nurseries, we have Lady Love Plama, we have businesses associated with a home or a farm that is agriculturally based. It comes from the home, it comes from the land. Guns do not. They are not an accessory use. They're not accessorizing anything on the property. Now, again, I don't understand why it is necessary to put more commercial businesses in agricultural residential areas. And so far, you have come up with no, as Mrs. Mara said, no criteria, no standards, no, it's just, special use permit, go for it, make an application. I don't understand, other than there are some people in town who like to sell guns out of their house. Then there are 7 or 8 different FFL licenses, limited. Perhaps not rebuilding and modifying weapons in your home. That might be a start. Maybe just the antique guns, and then I forget what the others are. But there are some that are rather benign, but not where someone can go in, order a gun online, get it, put whatever you want on it, and walk out with it. I don't care if a person has an FFL or not. And I find it hard to believe that there are more gun shops in homes in Providence than anywhere else. I think there might be more FFL licenses, but that doesn't mean they are running a gun shop.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yep. No, you, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, yes. Thank you.
All right. I wanted to add that I lived in Oregon for 10 years, and the people over there were super, just like everybody here. You'd see a car broken down on the side of the road, 3 cars trying to help them out. You get in Providence, that don't happen. But out here in the woods, it does. And I picked Foster. I just turned 70. I want to live in peace. I don't want to think that there's a bullet coming that's going to whack me. You know what I mean? Hey, you guys don't understand.
Thank you.
It's like putting me in the middle of it again.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Nope, that's all right. Mr. DiPaolo, you had your hand up first.
I'd like to make a correction. When I said that FFL licenses have existed in Foster for a half a decade, I meant a half a century, so I apologize.
So she's now concerned. Mr. Sheldon.
Everyone seems to believe that an FFL license is going to lead to a gun store. Most of these businesses aren't stores. They are simply a guy in a house, in his own home. There's not going to be somebody selling guns retail out of his living room or ammunition out of his room. Excuse me. And I think most of the people here know that. They're just using that as a deflection. There is not going to be gun stores in this AR zoning. But to deal with the AR zoning, we should look at a zoning map. Half of Route 6 has some GBM. Half of Route 6. The rest of the town, I bet you 98% of it is AR zoning. So when you look at this map, you can see, yeah, there's a reason to have businesses of some kind in those areas.
Thank you. Mrs. Kendall.
Just so to clarify, having an FFL
doesn't entitle you to anything, except with the exception of the category of the FFL. There's 3 different categories of FFLs. For him to say you cannot manufacture ammunition is incorrect. It depends on what type of FFL you file for and get approved for, and the police chief can attest to this. You have a class 3 FFL, you can make ammunition, you can create your own firearms. You can create little bombs. It depends on the classification of FFL that you obtain through ATF. And having an FFL doesn't stop anybody in this room from buying a firearm. All it does is entitle you to purchase through online, to have the firearm come directly to you instead of going through a company like Foster Bear Arms. You can go into Foster Bear Arms and purchase a firearm, wait the 8 days, if you clear it, you're good to go. There's no reason anybody needs to have an FFL on their property, their personal property, with the exception if you're going to run a commercial business, because it's not feasible money-wise. You can purchase any firearm with an FFL or an Antiques and Curio for an antique firearm. Adam can vouch for this because he deals with it every day. You do not need an FFL to go purchase a firearm. That only allows you to run the same paperwork that a commercial company like Adam has through your home. You still have to report to ATF, you still have to do all the background checks, you still have to go through the police for your application, you still have to get a NICS check. That is all a part of it. So for him to say, because you have an FFL doesn't mean that you're going to manufacture, that is wrong. It depends on what classification FFL you apply for and you get approved for.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? Okay, that being said, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up to the council.
I'd like to make a motion that we not approve.
Could you make me a copy?
I'd like to make a motion that we uphold the current ordinance. Is that what it is? From the planning board. Which,
I'm sorry, could you repeat, please?
I would like to make a motion that we do not change the current, all right, how am I supposed to say this?
Her motion is,
I don't want to change this.
her motion is to agree with
The planning.
the planning board's proposal. So her motion would be to,
The motion needs to be made in the affirmative. You might need to make the motion
You want me to make the
to,
motion?
yeah.
I make the
I don't want
motion.
it to change.
Well, then that's how you vote. All motions have to be made in the affirmative, how they're listed on the agenda and what we're discussing. Unfortunately, that's just the way this has always worked, long before we ever sat here.
All right.
So I will make the motion that we amend, a motion to amend to the table, use table zoning ordinance to allow firearms, ammunition, archery, edge weapons, shops in an agricultural residential zone with a special use permit.
is there a second?
No,
That's
not
It is.
That is the way,
That's allowed, it has
it's the
to be.
way it's listed on our agenda, so we have to make the motion in that way. The motion needs to be made in a positive, so right, all motions have to be made, right, not just this one, all motions need to be made in the positive. And then you vote accordingly. So if you disagree with that, then you would say no. If you agree with it, you would say yes. So the motion is that we amend the use table in zoning ordinance to allow firearms, ammunition, archery, edged weapon shops in an agricultural residential AR zone with special use permit. That is the motion. It has been made and seconded. I will open it up to discussion with the council. The audience has had a chance to speak.
I would like to support what the planning board has provided and put before us. That's where I am. I
So
don't
you
want
would vote no
I will
when it
vote
comes
no.
time. Thank you.
That's absolutely right.
Anyone else on the council that would like to make?
I'd like to address a couple of quick concerns that, as I've mentioned before, some of the concerns are having businesses in an agricultural residential neighborhood that don't conform to being farm. I mentioned two of at least 10 that are in now, for example, machine shops, calibration equipment, general stores that aren't allowed in AR that are currently operating, which, once it was mentioned, the special use is permitted, and we even have motocross races that are allowed on special use property. Once those people are issued that, they never come back in front of the council. The unique part about this is, when this is applied for, the council or whoever they go for, they'll go forward in front of the zoning for a special use permit. After they go to planning, the applicant can discuss what type of business he wants to have, and he'll be able to have a chance to put his words forward of what he wants to do, whether it be antique or old guns, or exactly what he wants to do. He may say he may never have a firearm at his house. It may be just the paperwork end of it. That has to be brought forward to the planning, then the zoning, and then the special use permit will be granted or not granted, like all these other businesses. But this has another extra layer on it, that all these other businesses that have a special use permit don't come in front of the council on a yearly basis. If there's complaints and arguments and problems with them, when new people move in, they can't be addressed because those properties have it, they moved in, it was there. The unique part about this is these licenses are addressed and issued over the police chief's oversight, the ATF and the FBI, before they even gets to the police chief and the town council. Then the town council gets to address whether they want to renew it or not. So this goes along with, again, property owner rights. If somebody wants to do that and all their neighbors don't have a problem with it, then why are we going to try and restrict people from doing what them and their neighbors want to do in the property? So I am going to vote for this because to this is a middle ground for something that was in place for 5 centuries, which is 50 years, and never a complaint.
Decades.
5 centuries.
Five decades, which was 50 years, which was never a problem, never an issue. And what happened was when it was changed, it was a change to a knee-jerk reaction too far to the other way. So I will be supporting this motion as I made it.
Any further discussion of the council?
Chief Zeal, does it help you to keep track of what's happening in town?
If
Again,
they're,
it just allows businesses, again, we don't have issues with any of the FFLs that are in town. Some of them don't even do business. But they do have that opportunity, maybe once or twice a year they will do a transfer. And again, I have no problem with FFLs, I have no problem with weapons. Again, weapons, responsible people own weapons, and again, yeah, the irresponsible ones, the criminals, they're gonna get their weapons whether they do it lawfully or unlawfully. The ATF, again, the hoops that FFL has to go through, the ATF, the FBI, before it even makes it to the local level is, probably eliminates, any issue. So as I've said before, and the previous police chief, supports these FFLs.
Any further discussions? Thank you. I wanted to make a couple comments. When this first came to the previous council, as I said, Mr. Rogers and I were on that council along with Ms. Laws, but I don't think it was when your father was there. Mr. Rogers and I both voted that we would want the amendment, that we would want the special use permit on the table. I remember it distinctly because I had quite an argument with one of the participants in the audience. I do not see this as increasing the amount of firing of arms in the residential areas. I live near a gun club. I do hear gunshots on Sunday morning. It does not deter me, it doesn't concern me. I know that they have rules and regulations that they have to follow. I am not opposed to this. I feel that if they have to have an FFL license, there's a special use permit, there's many things that they have to go through. We have to give them the license yearly, just like we did tonight. So I would be voting to approve this.
Just one other note I'd like to add, that of all the gun clubs we have in town, the gun ranges, not one of them holds an FFL license.
So, any further discussion with the council? Hearing none. If you vote yes, you are approving the amendment to the use table in zoning ordinance to allow firearms, ammunition, archery, edge weapon shops in an agricultural residential zone with a special use permit.
I just want to say, I'm listening to these people and their concerns, and I think they're very valid, and that is why I was going to vote against it. I'm probably going to abstain because of what the chief just said. However, I want people to know I grew up with guns. I have people hunting in my woods. I'm not against people being able to do that at all. I am concerned for the people that are concerned for what is going around next door to them.
And if you go for a special use permit, you are notified as a neighbor that this is going to be happening. And you can go to the zoning board and say, I have an issue with this, and you can voice your opinion. It's a special use permit. It's not just handing it out, carte blanche, here you go, you can have it, you can have it. There's a special use permit. They have to jump through some hoops. So I think that they have a right to do it. Look at the ones. Did you, the addresses, are you even aware that this is going on at some of these addresses?
I wasn't until I looked at those.
Right, I mean, I was surprised there's one right down the road from me, and I never drive by it all the time. I would never guess that that was going on in there. I don't think it's an issue. Yes, Chief.
And again, just the concerns in the crowd, if there's a concern from the, and again, there's issues, we have reports of, the shooting, it's very rare that, somebody is shooting unlawfully in town, just because of the limits that are set, the backdrops, the distances and everything else. If that is a concern, maybe that should be a separate ordinance instead of FFL.
Right, this is to allow the shops. And I don't see it as commercial, because certainly if it's a commercial, it's much larger. In my opinion, a commercial is much larger. It would be on Route 6. It would not be in somebody's home. I don't think that they would be able to maintain it at that point.
Commercial is a business though, Denise.
It's a business. Thank you.
Small business, large business. I think it's a business.
Public hearing is closed. Thank you. So I'm going to take the vote. We discussed it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
One abstention. I'm closed. We are future agenda items. I am taking, excuse me, we still have a meeting going on. Thank you. We have future agenda items. I am taking off the Swamp Meadow Theater half shell, and
We need to address how we're going to meet as a committee and vote for private roads. So I guess you're going to get in touch with the people that
excuse me, if you need to have a discussion, if you would take it out of the building, we'd appreciate it. We have a meeting still going on. Thank you so much. Mr. Dacko.
Just one question. When will this take effect?
Immediately.
Okay?
Does that impact your business? I wanted to ask that and I forgot. Yes, it does.
Impact your business.
Sure, it's going to take away from it.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how many applicants I have.
without a doubt.
And I meant to ask that, I'm so sorry I didn't.
Okay?
Thank you. Okay, future agenda items. I'm removing Swamp Meadow Theater half shell. They are not responding to us. We still have the financial statement.
Yep.
The way it says Russell's.
It's not up on that.
No, but it's taken up.
You want on the agenda, you want to discuss it?
We just never did, I just, so we just been floating there.
I've been asked, yes, I've been trying to contact them. So put it on.
My question was, oh, sorry.
Can we?
I'll put it on, they'll come out.
Catch you later.
Well, I don't know, maybe we're gonna push them a little bit. Maybe that the acknowledgement that they get is not.
From what I hear, they haven't cut it anyway. I don't think we can discuss any further than that, since it's a future agenda item. Financial statement is still on there. And EMA, EOC follow-up. I didn't have that, I don't know where that came from. EMA, EOC follow-up.
That's been on for,
I haven't seen, okay. I
that was
haven't
just on the,
Yeah, I think that
on the
contained
money,
the trailer.
we're spending, you'll see it on the warrant. Okay, so I should take it off?
Cities, questions was private road.
I think you
I can call them up and we can meet. We have to post it, it's just me, we don't have to post it, do we?
No, you do.
You do.
As a workshop, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we post the animal.
All right, okay, I wasn't sure.
No, you have to post it.
All right.
Anything else?
Well, I'll contact them and try and get a date to
We're
meet.
just running for conversion of the LA, street lights to LED lights.
Okay.
You didn't say it was on the committee, can I absolutely find out who the name?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Are you gonna post this? That's all of that?
Go what, this thing? Yes, it has to be posted. Wait a minute, I just, it's issue,
Oh,
the private.
Yeah, I'm just.
Usually you say the name.
We're back in stuff.
I think you should see yourself.
Ready for the trip?
Yes.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Been seconded,
Second.
Came in the mail for you guys.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?